But the special counsel was back at it today. Jack Smith has been closing in on many aspects of these Trump plots, and he is again questioning one of the most senior people in Trump's orbit, as we've been reporting from the beginning of his political era, 2015 or so, all the way through the arraignment. We're talking about Boris Epshteyn. The second day talking to investigators, ABC reporting after several hours of questions, Epshteyn is back for more. Prosecutors looking at his conversations and interactions with Trump attorneys like Giuliani, as well as Kenneth Chesebro and John Eastman, and Trump himself. The Washington Post has reported that Epshteyn speaks to Trump in the current era as many as 5 times a day, which means there's a lot linking him and the former president in ways that these investigators are clearly interested in. As for those names, they're familiar because they are part of the controversial set of advisors who were helping try to normalize, seed the ground for, or literally execute on a coup plot. All of them, the 3 I just mentioned, Giuliani, Chesebro, and Eastman, have been recommended for criminal prosecution by the January 6th committee, which was serving in the last Congress. ABC also reports that Smith personally sat in on part of Epshteyn's interview Thursday, that he, as the leader of this investigation, did not lob any questions, which would be typical, but that he made a point, according to this reporting, of walking into the room. Now, Epshteyn is under scrutiny for more than one thing, but we do know that his role in planning the January 6th coup and trying to seed the paperwork, the eventual fraud, to normalize it, is clearly of interest. He's also already had his phone seized by the feds. That's something we saw in another controversial Trump lawyer, John Eastman, memorably on this video from New Mexico. Hands on his head, agents taking the phone. Epshteyn also was mentioned over and over in the final investigative report from that January 6th committee I mentioned. You could see here just how many different times he comes up in a report that, of course, had many different big names to deal with, but was pulling on the threads of who planned the coup, of who planned the elector fraud, of who was trying to overthrow election results at the state or federal level after they had been certified under law. And you could see all the references there. That is not a good thing if you are then later trying to say, hey, you weren't involved. Then there is the fact that, like Giuliani and sometimes like Donald Trump himself, Mr. Epshteyn does like to go out and talk and explain his role. Indeed, he admitted in an interview here on The Beat that he was pushing what became an elector fraud plot. He then, in that same interview, appeared to try to argue that he was carrying out orders from on high from Rudy Giuliani. He also went on Steve Bannon's War Room pushing the plot for Pence.
The vice president's got a lot of power, and that's very important to recognize.
Are we to assume that this is going to be a climactic battle that's going to take place this week about the very question of the constitutionality of the Electoral Count Act of 1877?
Well, I think a lot of that depends on the courage and the spine of the individuals involved.
Vice President Mike Pence? I don't want to.
That's John Eastman there with Bannon, and I've mentioned this before, but it fits into the whole context. At the time, this was all being presented as sort of a kind of a brainstorming or a discussion, right? That Bannon asked the questions, Eastman answers, Epshteyn is on the side advising them, and then going out with Giuliani to give his press tour, which then also involves speaking to government entities, and that's important to Jack Smith because lying in interviews or on the War Room is different than lying to a state legislature. But we know now from the committee report that I mentioned, that I showed you on the screen, and a lot of other information, that this was all highly coordinated, that pressure on Pence was coming from the memos Eastman had drawn up. And the excuses that they were offering Pence, who we now know had already told them, hey, guys, I don't think I can just single-handedly help steal this election for you. The excuses were being quarterbacked in to Epshteyn, who was saying, well, what if there were 2 slates of electors? What if there were questions? Maybe we can get you documents and you can respond to those. The problem was those documents weren't real. They were fraud, attempted to be submitted to the government. And now the government, through Jack Smith, is investigating whether that crossed a line into federal crimes. All of that goes to other crimes as well, because Epshteyn is under a lot of pressure here. He was at the table at Trump's arraignment. The Times reports he speaks to the former president several times a day. Another outlet, the Washington Post, said it could be up to 5 times a day. Now, are they talking about the past, the coup, Trump's legal troubles, Or lately, will they be talking about Epstein's legal troubles? And will Trump want to know what his sometime lawyer and sometimes pugilistic sort of political fighter, what he told these investigators yesterday and today? I want to bring in David Kelly, who is the former U.S. attorney who ran the famed SDNY. Also, I should mention, my former boss and someone who, like Jack Smith and some of the people in that room, knows exactly how you do interviews like this. And so that's where we start, David. When you look at someone like Boris Epshteyn, who has so much involvement in so many different aspects, just at an investigative level, how would you and how will federal prosecutors try to get this information from him?
So there's a couple of thoughts here, Ari. First off, Jack Smith has taken a very methodical approach here, which is really encouraging, and going through all the people around the president, the former president, to find out what he knew. And let me add this additional thought, which I think is a little bit unique with Epstein, which is he is reportedly the good news guy for Trump. And one of the angles that I think Jack Smith may be taking is, let's find out what the good news boy said to the president so we can kind of preempt a defense of saying, well, look, I was told by a lawyer X, so the good news stuff. So they may be trying to X that out, but I think it's also important. One of the big things, and I think, they took his phone in, I think, reportedly in September. So here we are. They've analyzed everything, and I'm sure they are very carefully walking through each and every text to find out what was going on, what was meant, and outside of the text, what that person said to him and what he heard others say to each other. They were going to,
Let's slow down on that point, because you're just reminding people how this stuff works, but not everyone does these kind of probes, David. A lot of folks don't want their phone read by strangers, even if they weren't involved in a coup that turned into a seditious plot to overthrow the government. Most people don't like that idea. You're reminding us that they haven't just been hanging out. What have they been doing? You're saying they take that phone, they go through all that material, and then they present that to him in questioning today?
They download it, and they look for what's called hot documents. So they're going to look for a conversation that looks very interesting. And they're going to say, okay, when you said X and Y, and he said to you, the next few things, what did you understand that to mean? What did you mean by that? And it's a bit of a painstaking thing. And sometimes the answer is, well, what do you think it means? What it says it means. But it's important to kind of walk through it, not only understand what the words mean, particularly when you're using text, which is slang and abbreviations and so forth, but also really important to focus on the context. And sometimes these texts are in relation to, in response to, in the context of a prior conversation with somebody else or with the person with whom you're texting, and as kind of a follow-up. So it's very important to flesh this out a little bit and walk through each and every one of these texts to really understand what's being said. Now, what's really important about this is it's also going to kind of box the witness in a future proceeding, because they're kind of stuck with what they say here. Presumably, he has a lawyer who's prepped him, and they've gone through each and every one of these texts, so they kind of have in advance would kind of understand or practice what they are going to say here. But it's really important for the special counsel's team to go through each and every one of those.
Yeah. Then you have the further leaks we've gotten, some of this not from the federal side, this probe, but other assorted legal pressure. I was covering this Fox settlement earlier this week. Here's the new tape where Peter Navarro is talking to someone at Fox, but of course he is now awaiting trial for defying the Jan 6 committee. What you'll notice, David, and I want to get your response, is he's frustrated that he says Sidney Powell, another one of these lawyers, is not good for the cause, that he wants to overthrow the election a certain way, and he doesn't like what she's doing. Take a listen.
You have no idea how much damage she did to our efforts. She really, I'm telling you, the history was written on this. She was like the turning point in our inability to prove the case, because she was like so far out there that people like pulled back. We were on the verge of some breakthroughs in the state legislature level, and then that happened, and it was like Katie barred the door. It's like, damn, just not good.
David, I'm curious your view about this for investigating something that had so many different people who are at odds with each other. Because you have Epstein sitting literally at Trump's arraignment table, still on that good news team, as you put it. You have people who seem to be put more on the outs, like Sidney Powell, a lot of folks blaming her. Would these investigators want to pick apart that and have these people kind of tell on each other?
Oh, absolutely. That's number one. Number two, what's really funny or interesting about the clip you just played is how, by going as far out on the limb as she is, it takes away credibility to the story. When you start throwing Cesar Chavez into the mix and all sorts of crazy stuff, lasers from outer space, that removes, the opportunity to try to develop a credible story, which they were struggling with anyway. But Sidney Powell's version of events was so far out there, which I think helps to explain because she's so far out there, it helps to explain that their story, too, is just kind of ridiculous.